Hello, everyone. I would like to talk to you about intertextuality theory in film. The basic premise for intertextuality is that every text is related to other texts. It's a concept that was developed in the 20th century by Julia Kristeva, but it's also equivalent to another concept, dialogism, developed by Mikhail Bakhtin. In the context of cinema, we must establish that, first of all, but we already discussed that cinema it's a text, but it's not just the influence or is influenced by another text, or it's not just the source of other texts. The relationship that cinema has with other forms of art is much more complex than that. So the concept of intertextuality is particularly helpful in studying the relationship between cinema and literature, particularly. Now, cinema is much more complex in as much as it is not limited to a single medium. We already talked about this. Cinema is about the moving image, it's about sound, it's about music, lighting. It's the relationships between cinema and the different media that compose it are complex. And that establishes the ground for a rich relationship between forms of art and between texts. So intertextuality is very much related to film. Dialogic relations with other forms of art and media are established through cinema, and that's what we study. And also, let's keep in mind that intertextuality is a concept that talks about the relationship between a singular text to other systems of representation. So in terms of literature and cinema, that's precisely that. Two different systems of representation that are entered into a dialogic relationship. Now, there's a larger concept that Gerard Genet developed in 1982, that's transtextuality. It simply means all that puts one text in relation with other texts. So any form of relationship between one text and another text is transtextuality, according to Genet. Now, intertextuality, more specifically, is an effective co-presence of two texts. If those two texts that enter into a relationship coexist, right, then we are in the presence of intertextuality. We have, for example, examples of these are quotations, in which you insert a text into another text. Allusion, when you make a verbal or visual reference or evocation of something else in whatever you're writing, whatever you texted. Plagiarism, which is a form of appropriation, when one text actually copies from another text without giving any credit. So these are forms of intertextuality too. Now, another concept that is under the umbrella of transtextuality is paratextuality. This is the relation between the text proper and the accessory messages and commentaries that surround it. Those are called paratexts. So for example, for a film, we're gonna establish that a film is a text, but then the trailer that is made about the film, it's a paratext. Also, the poster that we see, or the images of the characters of the movie, or even the title as a graphic design of the title of the film, those are paratexts. A news report on a movie or a news review or a review of a film, it's a paratext. So any other text that is accessory to the original text proper, that's paratext. Another concept, metatextuality. It's a critical relation between one text and another, explicit or implicit. So when you write an essay about a film, or about a literary text in which you criticize or you analyze or interpret a text, then you're writing a metatext of that original text. So a metatext is any text that has a critical relationship with an original text. Then there's architecturality that refers to generic taxonomies suggested or refused by the titles or infratitles of a text. So a title of a text might provide a suggestion as to what is the genre of the text. For example, there's a play by Shakespeare called The Comedy of Errors. The word comedy is in the text, so there's a suggestion that this text belongs to an architext that's called comedy as a literary genre, okay? We're not gonna get many examples of those in film, but we just needed to clarify that there's paratextuality, metatextuality, and architecturality. But the ones that we're really interested in is hypertextuality. This is the one that we're mostly interested in for analysis. Hypertextuality is a relationship between one text, which we're going to call hypertext, and an anterior text, the hypotext, which the former transforms, modifies, elaborates, or extends. So if a movie is based on a book, okay, or is inspired by a book, that novel or play is the hypotext, and the movie will be the hypertext. So hypertextuality is what we know as a form of adaptation in simple terms, okay? So hypertextuality, the relationship between one text and another text a previous text that it elaborates, transforms, modifies, adapts, or extends. Filmic adaptations of novels are a very good example of hypertextuality, of course. Also, we got to keep in mind that some of these films update earlier works and they accentuate specific features of the original. So any film adaptation is actually given emphasis to some features or characteristics or aspects of the original text and de-emphasizing other aspects, okay? So a movie might give a character a more significant role that it had in the book, or do the opposite, right? De-emphasize or give less importance to the setting, for example, and more importance to the plot, or whatever modification or whatever adjustment the hypertext makes of the hypotext it's very present in this form of intertextuality. Remakes of movies are also hypertexts, or a movie can be a hypotext, and because it's replicated or it's modified or it's parodied by another movie, that would then be a hypertext. So the replicas, generic reworkings, parodies, all those forms of adjustments, modifications, adaptations are examples of hypertextuality. Now, to end with this affirmation, it's that intertextuality is an ongoing twirl of transformation of texts generating other texts in an endless process of recycling, transformation, and transmutation with no clear point of origin. In other words, intertextuality is a mess, okay? We have texts related to each other in so many different ways, with so many different results. Any form of adaptation, collaboration, reworking, allusions, quotings, any form in which one text coexists with another, it's an example of intertextuality, okay? And hopefully we'll get a chance to discuss this more in depth in class. Please prepare your questions or comments, and I'll be seeing you very soon. Thank you very much.